George Beiruthi from FS Securities, a stockbroking firm on the Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia. And every Monday morning I go through what happened the last few weeks and try to forecast what may happen the coming week. If you like the presentation, please send us some feedback at our email address, which I will show you at the end. I'm going to start with an important factor that determines how the market is moving. As you can see on the top section here, out of 8 days, 5 were actually had more advances than declines, and on Friday in particular it had one of the best exposure to the advances over declines. 36% of our stocks advanced and 19% were actually declined. However, if you look at the volume over the week, we can see also that the advances over the total, which is a decline, is actually 51%, just slightly above 51%, and the decline happened to be 49%. The volume in December was pretty high, as well as in January, and it started to decline, and we started to see some interest in our market. I guess there are a few economic factors that determined the sentiment in the market. The tax rate falling down, and also the interest rate as well. So that's actually encouraged people to start looking at the market. Now, in terms of the last 2 weeks, we can see here that the American market, this is actually the American market and commodities, over the last 2 weeks, the market was up nearly 0.9%, despite the drop last week. As a full week, the market in America was down 177 points, that is 0.7%. However, when you combine the last 2 weeks, we still had a bullish fortnight. However, it's different for the Nasdaq and the S&P 500. Over the last 2 weeks, they were actually down. Now, when you look at the US dollar, it's really gained a bit of strength last week. The Australian dollar at the same time also gained nearly 0.9%. I guess, the reason behind that is that now there is a lot of discussion about where the interest rate in America is going to go, and everybody's expecting a drop, at least one drop of 25 basis points this coming week or two. And that obviously will put the US dollar at a weaker level, and that pushes the Australian dollar against the US a bit up. Okay, in terms of gold, we've seen gold going up $25.30 over the last 2 weeks. That is 1.8%. Last week by itself, it went up by 8.7. However, last 2 weeks, we still had a very good fortnight for gold, as well as silver as well. Silver was up 8.1%. Crude oil over last week was down 7.7%. However, over the last 2 weeks was down 3.5%. What does that really tell us is that 2 weeks ago we had a very good positive market on the oil. However, the drop last week of 7.7 brought the overall decline over 2 weeks down to 3.5%. Other commodities, you can see here also the changes, and if you're interested to trade any of the other commodities, please give us a call. Now, in terms of our market, we can see that we had a mixed week, even though the volume was higher in relative term, and also we can see that consumer discretionary was up. However, energy was down, as we've explained about the oil. In terms of the S&P ASX 200, which is our gauge, was slightly up last week of 0.1%. However, over the last 2 weeks was down 0.8%. And as a matter of interest, our market gauge is made up extensively or by a great component by the financial and the material sectors. When the materials and the financial sectors are up collectively, the market responds accordingly. If one is up and the other one is down, then you can see a little bit of sideways movement in the overall market. Well, the financial was slightly up last week, but was down 1.1% over the last 2 weeks. On the other hand, the materials, and thanks to BHP, Rio and Fortescue, had a very good week last week, 1.4%, and over the last 2 weeks was slightly up. So slightly up on the materials for the last fortnight and 1.1% down on the financial, and that's really reflected by the overall decline in the overall market by 0.8%. Now looking at the various stocks, we can see here the best stock last week was Newcrest Mines, thanks to the gold price. We've had a good results on NAB and also on Wesfarmers. We had a very bad results in CIMIC, which is the old Leighton Holdings, a construction company, down 19% over the last 2 weeks, followed by AMP, down 16.5% over the last 2 weeks. Again, if you want a copy of this presentation, all you have to do is call us. Now, in terms of our mechanical system that we have designed over the last 15 years, which helps us to actually look at the indicators on the chart and determine what strategy we have for the investor, the conservative trader, the aggressive trader, and the very aggressive trader. And here what we've got 5 weeks of data. So if you look at the last 5 weeks, we've gone from neutral on the American market to slightly bullish to heavily bullish for 2 weeks, and last week we started to see that the Dow continues to be strong. However, the Nasdaq and the S&P 500 started to show a bit of neutral position, slight declines. Again, crude oil, we had very bearish market 5 weeks ago, neutral, then bearish, neutral, and now we started to see some bearish decline as well. So it's a very volatile market. Of course, we know what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz with the battle between Iran and the United States and the seizure of a British tanker, and also the Brits taking over one particular tanker from the Iranian. So there is a lot of tension in the crude oil business because of what's happening in the Middle East. Now, in terms of commodities, gold is bullish, silver is bullish, and as I mentioned, crude oil and natural gas and heating oil all bearish. Now looking at the charts, we can see here that before Christmas the market in America dropped by nearly 13%, recovered all of it in January and February, slight decline, and now we are reaching an all-time high. That is actually the weekly chart. Last 2 weeks we've seen a jump over that particular point to create an all-time high, but last week was bearish and a bit of decline. In the last 5 days of trading, we've seen on Friday the market open higher. That is where the box, the red box, in relation to the closing of the green box the day before. It opened higher, went down, went high, and closed down at the very low end. So we expect, because of the closing at the very end of the day at almost the lowest point, or very close to the lowest point, that is a bearish sentiment. Now looking at our market, in terms of the sectors, energy is bearish as I explained, and the one that we like, consumer discretionary, gold and materials and consumer staples. And you can see that the market 3 weeks ago was relatively very strong and started to give some of that money of the profit away. But we like to focus on the sectors that are producing bull across the 4 type of clients: the investor, the conservative trader, aggressive trader, and very aggressive trader. Now in terms of our ASX 200 chart, again before Christmas the market dropped by nearly 13%, recovered all of that in January and February, and a bit of March, and then we continue to go higher to all-time high, well, actually the highest point since 2007, the time of the great financial crisis. Are we going to reach 6,850, which is the closing price when we close at the highest point in 2007? Well, that will tell us, in time, Anyway, by the way, today we expect the market to drop. So we don't know exactly, at least the future showing 25 points decline. So we might see a closing price today below the 6,700. In terms of our mechanical system, ANZ is bearish, has been bearish for quite some time, gained more bearish sign last week. CBA, on the other hand, is actually a better performer as far as the banks are concerned, and so is NAB. And when it comes to Westpac, so we look at ANZ and Westpac to be bearish, and we see a CBA and National Australia Bank as being the bullish 2 out of the 4. Macquarie Bank, it started to actually lose a bit of the strength it had 3 weeks ago. As you can see, bearish for the very aggressive trader and still bullish for the investor. So the investor is the one that actually has the buy the shares, put them in the bottom drawer, and wait for months, maybe years. On the other hand, the very aggressive trader is in and out of the market on a regular basis. So this is our recommendation as well. And if you want more information, all you have to do is call us. Wesfarmers, by the way, is bullish. Woodside Petroleum bearish. Santos slightly bearish, but Woodside Petroleum more bearish than Santos. And Suncorp is bearish as well. Now I want to actually tell you that we've actually been trading CFDs, and we've had some very good success on some of their recommendation. We traded Appen and Perseus. Perseus is actually a minor gold mining companies, and at the moment we entered the market on the 26th of June. As you can see here, we've put $500 as a demonstration. Of course, you can put a lot more than $500, depends on what type of trader or investor you are. Of course, there is risk in everything we say and everything we do, but however, this is actually a nice entry into the market. $500. Look what it is today, $869.54. That is $369 profit, or 74% in just 4 weeks. So while the $369 don't really show a big dollar rise, the percentage is pretty high, and that percentage will be reflected whether you put $1,000 or $5,000 or $1 million or just $500. And I recommend, if you're new in the market, $500 if you're not going to slice your wrist if you lose them, because of course, as I mentioned, there is risk in the market. However, we're not in the market to lose money. Of course, we are in the market to make money. And in this case, we've made 74% profit in just 4 weeks. And by the way, we've made that recommendation to all our clients. Get into Perseus, get into Appen, and so far we've been relatively successful. Okay, now we also have a system we've created. We like to spot where the big increases in the volume. Well, we can see here that Perseus had a very big jump in percentage, in volume. Usually we have 17.7 million transaction per day. That's the moving average over 50 trading days. Well, on Friday we had nearly 50 million trades. So a lot of people are buying Perseus. And by the way, we entered the market about a week ago when we started to see the signs. And of course, the momentum has continued with Perseus and continued to make some money. I like to also today look at a company called Karoon. This is an energy company. It had 221% volume on Friday. Usually the daily volume average over 50 days is 2.8 million. Well, on Friday it had 6.3. So we're going to start looking at Karoon today. I don't know about IMF. I don't know a great deal about it. It had a very major increase in volume, but we're going to focus mainly on gold and energy as companies that can actually create some potential. Volatile, yes. High reward to risk, yes. But of course there is always risk. Okay, because I don't know your financial circumstances, this is our disclaimer. I don't know your financial circumstances, so everything I said is only of general advice only. We haven't taken your financial circumstances into consideration. So before you do anything, please consult with us or with your professional advisor. And if you have any questions, all you have to do is ask. How to communicate with us? Well, you can write to me at george@fssecurities.com.au. If you're ringing from overseas, you put 61, that is the country code, and you don't put the 0. 61-411-259526. So happy trading, and this is me, and I wish you all the best of trading, and hopefully you make a lot of money this week.